If you have this 16-speed drill press from Harbor Freight, it is very likely only a matter of time before the power switch stops working. It will freeze turned on, so you have to unplug the machine in order to turn it off, and then you won't be able to turn it off no matter what you do. The switch will just be like this and it will do nothing. That's because the guts of it are really cheap and junk. They're not for the amp rating of the motor, or at least they shouldn't be. So I've experienced this with both my drill press now, today, yesterday actually, as well as my dad's. My dad had the same machine, and years ago I replaced the switch on that. This one hung on for several more years, but I used it a lot less compared to his back in the day. So mine finally failed, and so I'm fixing it now. On my dad's, I ended up just putting a light switch in this space where the switch used to go, but it doesn't fit. So I had to like put it in crooked, and then I had to cover it with, you know, duct tape. It wasn't ideal, wasn't very safe. It works, but anyway, I ended up figuring out I could put the light switch on the side of it. This light switch, you know, it's a 15 amp, just household light switch. So it's obviously rated for the amount of power that this would run, because you can run it off a 15 amp outlet. So, and it runs right about 10 amps when you're running it, a little over. So anyway, I'll show you the details of how I mounted it in here. Basically, I mounted it on the side. I just drilled out, you know, cut out a hole to accept the switch, and then I drilled 2 holes for the mounting screws. And then inside here, I'll show you on the inside, you can see that's where I put some basically terminals, the forked female, or the forked terminals for going under those screws, because I'm using this flexible wire. So rather than putting the solid wire on those screws, I put the flexible wire on with the connector terminals, and then I put these blade type terminals on the ends of both of these wires. So now I can hook it to the machine wiring from the old switch, because it has these female blade type connectors. So I'll show you how the wiring there worked out, and we'll get this remounted. So I added a ground wire to the machine. The machine has 2 ground connections up here, one there and one there. I'm not sure why they didn't just use 1 screw, but they used 2. So I just added on to one of them with a ring terminal and another length of wire, so that I can connect ground to the switch, so that these screw points will be connected to ground. And if a wire were to short to those points, you won't end up shocking yourself on those screw heads. So I'm going to connect that, and then I have this is in here. This is the light switch for the machine. So that wiring needs to be hooked up. There was just enough room here to get the switch in here. I could have moved it back this way some, but that's where I put it, and it works. I did have to cut some of this. It had similar webbing, like right here. It had that over on this side as well that I just cut out with wire cutters, big diagonal cutters, to make room for the switch, and it'll work. So I'm just going to hook these connections. It doesn't matter which one you hook up to which. It does matter on this wiring, however. Let me remind myself here. This small wiring that's for the light. So you have the white neutral here, and then you have the hot. So this goes to the switch, and then one of these, this also goes to the switch. It just pigtailed off, so one of these is the hot coming in, and then one of these orange cords is the motor, and one is the power coming in. And on those, it must be this one's the power coming in, because I know you can run the light independently of the motor switch being on or off. It doesn't matter. So since they pigtailed off of this, that means this would be the hot lead coming from the wall, and then this is going to the motor from the switch. So it's pretty important to get this ground connection fastened before you Just make sure this is tight. It's important to get this ground connection fastened before you put this box on the face of the machine again. Make sure all the wiring goes through this top section between this webbing and the front here. Otherwise, you'll have to take it all apart and fish it all back through again, just like I just did. Okay, except the wires for the light switch need to go kind of be connected in before you put it together, or else I guess yeah, I'll try doing that. They don't make this easy. Okay, so basically this, the black wire that comes off the pigtail connection, or the double connection that was on the original motor switch, the other pigtail that comes off, that feeds the light. So I'm going to go ahead and connect that one now, because I won't be able to get to it once I put this back on the machine. I could pop the switch out, but I'd rather not mess with that. And then I'm connecting this other wire to the other terminal on the light switch. So now I have the light switch fully connected, both connections there. And now I'm going to mount this box back on. Make sure I have both motor new switch wires coming out, and make sure my wires for the motor are exposed enough, and the AC power. Okay, so that'll work. Doesn't look like anything's going to interfere with anything. So I'm going to go ahead and put these mounting screws back in to mount this box to the face of the machine. If I can find the original hole. And then this top one, actually two of them go up here into that web thing we were working around. Hopefully that screw will just fall out. Yep, there it is. Okay. Sometimes the things you want to get over with quickly just don't happen that quickly. But that's okay, this will be done soon. And I'll have my drill press working again. Okay. And my other screw down here. Kind of have to push past the wiring to get to this last screw hole location. Okay, before I go snug, I'm just going to wiggle it around, make sure it's on there evenly where it's supposed to be. Okay, those are all as tight as I dare make them on this plastic. Okay, so now, alright, so the connections that remain are just these two leads coming from the new light switch here, the new motor switch here, and these two connection points. This one goes to the motor, this one comes from the wall, the AC power. So I'm going to connect that one first because it's shortest. Actually, I'm going to make it easy. I'm going to use the long one, since it doesn't matter. Use the long one to connect here. Make sure that goes in nice and snug. Doesn't want to pull out easily. Feels good. And deciding whether to put tape on that or not. It's going to be kind of a pain putting it on there. I think it'll be okay. this old switch I'm probably going to put back in place just so that this isn't a blank hole. Although that will look like a switch, so if you needed to turn this off in an emergency, it'd be kind of a pain. I'm just going to do that, and I will put something over this faceplate eventually. For right now, I'm going to just tape over it because I want to get on to other things today. So I'm just going to tape over this hole. I would definitely recommend that you put a more permanent, even if you put something in here so that it's more than just tape. But I really need to move on to other things today. So I'm just going to get it done this way. Okay, that's plenty. The idea is that you don't want to just be able to poke your finger right through into the wiring, so that'll basically perform that function, so long as you're not crazy about trying to get in there. So that will be okay. And this final connection between the switch and the motor, make sure that one's secure. That looks all right. I'm gonna tuck it over on the side of the housing here, so it's kind of pushed away from both the connections of this switch as well as the screws that go through here. That one will be okay because it's just right here in the center. It'll just sit against the back of this tape, so that'll be okay. And now I need to poke through. Now I just need to poke a hole through here for that top screw to go back in. So it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but you end up with a functioning motor switch again. Let me just make sure that this all works. I'm going to plug it in, make sure it all works before I button it up. There's the light, there's the motor. They work independently of each other as they should. Put this back in and we'll move on. Okay. So in order to avoid this kind of frustration yourself, I would recommend not buying this machine unless you have to. Lowe's has or at least they did a few years ago, Lowe's has a Porter cable drill press model that is almost identical to this one, but works, in my opinion, a lot better. It has higher build quality overall. It has a laser level sight thing that is, I think, decently accurate. I didn't tend to use it much, but I bought that machine for one of my old bosses years ago, and it worked really well. We were really happy with it. It was very comparable to this machine and the identical one that my dad has. Very comparable, but I never had to do this switch upgrade on that one, though I did have to do it on both of the Harbor Freight models we've had. So, hope you found this helpful. If you would like to learn more handyman skills, head over to tomwylie.org and subscribe to this channel. Give this video a like if you found it helpful. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Oh, and one last thing. Let's put this stupid, cheap Harbor Freight drill press switch right where it belongs. In the trash.